Hey, welcome to the Runaways podcast. My name is Cody, and today we are back after Portland. I'm probably a little jet lagged still from my flights that I took there, but overall it was pretty great. We are joined today by Dan again, as always. Dan, how has your week been? How was your weekend at Portland?
Oh, it's been a great, man. I had a blast in Portland. I don't know, vibes were awesome there. Everyone was pretty chill, just kind of having a good time playing their CC decks. We saw quite the uptick in decks that we may have created between the three of us.
Yeah.
So that was fun. But no, the event was awesome. There's like so many new people I met that said things about the podcast or just new people to play against. A lot of really fun, enjoyable games. I think the meta, like we said last week, is just in an awesome spot. So like every time I sit down, like I played three news in a row, which like if you go back two metas, I would have been like kind of devastated because it's not fun. But it's like that's fine. Like the games are still pretty good, a lot of back and forth. But yeah, I'm pretty let down with my results. Mostly how I got there. Like I had two very challenging games that I don't know if anyone could win, but maybe they could, and two that were like entirely my fault. So I got some things to work on, but Portland was great. Had a good time.
Yeah,
Good sushi.
I like how relaxed the callings are. Actually, I would say like most of the events have been pretty relaxed as far as like opponents and playing the game goes. I was talking to Mara a little bit about this after the tournament, but like if you remember back to Lil, like Lil, the game was getting like really sweaty. There was like a lot of like angle shooting or like rules lawyering going on. And then LSS made that like change to their rules and takebacks and how the game state is maintained. And we haven't really ever talked about it, but I really think that has led to a path where the games are much more relaxed. I don't really hear about or see that stuff going on as often, and it's a lot more jovial. But if you weren't around for like Lil, I think Lil was one of the sweatiest tournaments we ever had as far as like how the rules were being enforced, player to player. But
Yeah, no, I agree. I remember that being kind of like the vibe is like there's like the subsection of players who it's like you don't want to play them because then it's like you're gonna have to like not watch them, but like it's gonna be more of a pain than an enjoyment, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
That's
I did
interesting.
have an interesting judge scenario in my round 7, the last round of day 1, where we had I think 5 separate judge calls in one match. And I don't think I had a single judge call in like any other match the whole time. It was all just condensed my whole weekend into this one match where it was just a snowball of like uh either me not understanding an interaction, my opponent not understanding an interaction, or them like meaning to do one thing but then doing something else and having to rewind. It was just like quite a mess. But yeah, I would say that's definitely the rare occasion and not the norm at all.
yeah. And the difference before is like those judge calls wouldn't rewind. You would just like
Mhm.
miss something, and everyone was like looking out for you to miss something so they could call a judge and make sure that it got skipped or
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
because
whatever.
it's
And
like
that's just not the case anymore.
they're very clear to make sure both players are doing the play that they're intending on doing.
yeah, you don't get like a
Correct.
benefit from just knowing the rules better now, right? It's like your
Mhm.
benefit is you just wasted both of your times for no reason because they're gonna walk it back anyway.
Yeah. And I guess to lead into that, I'll talk. We have Noda here for the first time in a while.
Yeah.
We finally got you back from Japan. We kept
Mhm.
being like, "Is Noah back yet to be on the podcast?" And he's like, "No, I'm still in Japan. I'm still in Japan." I was like, "Okay, I'm jealous, very
Mhm.
jealous." But you did top 8 at Worlds. We haven't got to talk about it on the podcast at all.
Mhm.
But how has your like Worlds to Portland kind of been?
Well, it was only because of Worlds that I even went to Portland. Uh, like Cody was saying, I was in Japan until the 15th of November. And when I got back from Japan, I was still like super hype on my deck. Like we'd seen the ban list now. I had a little bit of time to reflect on some like edits I wanted to make to the deck. And I didn't think I was going to be able to play it in its current form in another CC tournament. So I just like snap booked on Sunday on my phone. I know booking plane tickets is not phone activity, but I was like, I really want to go to Portland. So I just like snap booked flight, hotel, ended up going to play there, and like y'all were saying, had a blast. Um, I think this world's top 8 was like sort of to quote like a basketball analogy, like taking the lid off the basket. Like I finally actually connected with making a top 8 at a premiere event. That's kind of like been my goal ever since I started FAB. I don't think you can really ever hope for much more than that. Kind of have to get lucky to do better than that. But yeah, it made the whole rest of the trip in Japan great, and also this past weekend in Portland great too. Getting to see all the people at all the tables playing some iteration of my deck was pretty wild.
How many
Yeah.
top 16s did you have before this breakthrough?
3 between like Pro Tours and
Yeah, like Pro Tours though, right?
yeah,
And there's only been like 6 of those ever.
yeah,
So that's pretty good.
yeah.
Nice, man.
A couple of them I was like technically dead. It's like if I
Right.
would have won the last round, I would have got like 9th or 10th. But yeah, the one in Baltimore was the worst because it was like I was still like relatively new, and I was 9-1, and then somehow managed to make my way into a 10-4 and not top.
Did you enjoy being the star of the show for a day? I remember when I talked to Worlds, I felt like a celebrity. It was just like
It was
cool.
kind of a weird feeling. I don't know. I've never played in day 3 of a tournament before. Like once I had beat Bartosz, I was like, all right, I'm ready to go. Like, let's run this top 8 now. It was kind of weird to be like, okay, now we go get like dinner and we celebrate. But I'm like, well, it's not really celebrating yet. You know, I still got 3 more games to go. Like, this is just part 1. So that was a bit weird, but yeah, playing the top 8 match is really cool. Like I just enjoy playing on stream in general, and also having all y'all watching on the side supporting was like, it was a cool moment.
Yep, that was sweet. It was very interesting to run into everyone that was playing Viserai, and almost all of them were playing your deck.
Yep.
I didn't see very many that were not that. It was interesting to play against them as Zen at the tournament, and I'm just like, oh, you're not there yet. This deck is actually decent against Zen, but you're just like, after the end of the game, I had like several people ask, so how do I win this matchup? And I'm like, you got to 9th blade me. You got to put that 9th blade in, and you got to resolve 9th blade. That's how you beat me. But sweet. Yeah, topping Worlds was great. It was nice to see you finally have a breakthrough. And we'll see where you go from there. But what happened at Portland for you? How'd you finish?
So I finished 9-3, which was 22nd, I think, because I entered day 2 at 5-2. So it was kind of a weird tournament where I think we were only like 20, 30 people short from having one more round. And if we have one more round, then a lot more of the X3s get there. And like, I don't know, I felt like I was hitting my stride. I just kind of misplayed once in round 2. We talked about it after, where I just like imagined phantom cards in my opponent's hand that weren't actually there. And then I think my second loss was just like, sometimes Aurora draws the nuts. They have all the tricks to combat whatever you're doing. You don't draw the blues on their arcane turns, that kind of thing. And then my third loss, I have my notepad here. What did I lose to is my third loss? Oh, this is another Aurora. This one was just like a unfortunate situation where I played a lot of Amplify the Arknights. And there came down to a turn where I could have had a 9th blade, a red amp, or a yellow amp to force my opponent to give me at least one card and not just fridge with armor. But instead it was a blue amp, so they were able to live at 1, and then I just died on the next turn. So yeah, that's kind of just how Aurora matchup goes. But I played against a wide variety of other decks: Zen, Prism, Azalea, even an Ira game in the last round. That one was pretty lighthearted, like you were saying, Dan. It being a chill weekend, I think that was like my most chill game because my opponent was basically locked for top 32 prizing, no matter like win or lose. So it was like a fun game to play, knowing that like I wasn't robbing them of anything, just playing for myself to be able to also get that top 32. So yeah, I think this is the best I felt after not top 8ing an event, because I feel like I played really well with the exception of one round. It's just there wasn't enough rounds in the tournament to get there.
Yeah, I knew you were up there for most of it, and it's hard X2ing day 1 and then having to basically run the gambit on the
especially when
day 1.
Even if I would have lost the last round, I have no
basically
chance
run the gambit
because I was X2.
I was lucky enough to top 8 Portland. So second calling top 8 of the year, so I can't complain too much about that. At the bookends, start the year by top 8ing, and I guess I end the year by top 8ing. Once again, I did not win the tournament. Not been able to do that. Tarek got me right in top 8. I lost an Enigma match. It was a little unfortunate. I would really love to sit down and play an Enigma match where they don't draw top of range on turn 2 and my hand actually functions. And maybe that's just a fault of the deck if it's happening too often. But I think across the whole team where, I mean, we're like 65% or so into Enigma, so you can't really ask for much more than that. Overall, I thought the weekend was great. I had a lot of fun. I finally went undefeated on a day one. That's the, for people who don't know, I've never done that before. Every single time I've topped anything, I've been X2 on day one, and had the top that way. So, after day one, I will say this, I was a little nervous. I was like, I can't fail day two. I can't be one of those people who go undefeated on day one and then like doesn't top, just like crash and burn, and then like immediately lose my stream game on day one. And I was like, okay, no tilting. And I wasn't actually that upset afterwards. Like I made a big misplay in the stream game. I just didn't consider that my opponent could have grains. It was like too early. I didn't have coffee. I was like tired. Like legitimately, that's like what it was. I was like, I looked at all of his outs and I was like, okay, well, if you have this out, I can't do anything. And if you have anything else, there is nothing else. It's all in your graveyard. And then
it was like,
and if you have anything else, there is nothing else. It's all in your graveyard.
If you're ready,
and then
you win on the spot.
He has one reaction left, and I can't block it anyway. So like, if he has that reaction, he has it. And I'm like, if he has anything else here, this one armor should cover it, and I should be good. And then he's just like grains, and I was like, oh, the one thing I didn't consider. Oh, I'm so dumb.
But it was like no cost to you to block another equipment or something. Just to
I could have put both equipment in front of it, but I was trying to keep my Shuko so I could deal the damage because I was going to use my Shuko on the next round. And it would have been relevant because I was going to do a chase line. And so, yeah, my fault. That happens. And then immediately recover and like don't lose another game, which is sick. It was also nice that in my last round of the game, last round, I was already locked for second. Like win or lose my last round, I can't not get second. So I didn't really have to I didn't have to win it for seeding. I sat down and my opponent was playing Azalea, and I was like, oh, Azalea. I would be fine with this in the top cut. Like it'd be better than like the prisms and stuff that are floating around that could possibly make top cut. And then he like flips over his equipment and it's a sand scour bow. And I was like, well, I haven't really played this matchup very often, so let me at least get the rep. And so we go through it. I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. I'm like, in my head while I'm playing the game, I'm like, if I like, I'm going to win this, I'll probably just concede. Like, because I'm fine with him making top 8. It doesn't hurt me to concede in any way. It's not like he's off. Like, that's completely legal to do. And I would like to not let other people that are down the table, make it. This is actively good for me. Like, and luckily I didn't have to do that. He just beat me anyway. And I was like, that's fine. So, but he was like stressed out. He's like, oh no. Oh, why do I have to get this match? In my head, I'm just like, I just want the rep, but like, I'm probably scooping either way. I told him that afterwards. It's like, if you didn't beat me, I was probably just scooping. Cause like, I'm fine with you being in the top 8, not Prism. Cause like, I don't want to play that match.
Yeah. The Prisms, if it was it Guy or?
Yeah, they were, well, it's impossible to know who would have made it instead. But I just looked down the table and it's just like Michael Hamilton, like there's a Prism over here. There's a Venset, which is probably fine, but maybe not. I don't know. I haven't played that matchup a bunch. And there's like just a bunch of random decks down there. And I'm just like, you know what I'm fine playing against? This deck in front of me.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I was scared of the Prisms. I played into one, and after the match, he had cast a blue Angelic Wrath. And there was like a moment in the game where I could have blocked hedging around it. Like my plan was to block an Erudition with a Sink Below and a piece of armor, but I could have also thrown in the Tunic to be able to cover up 7 to play around Blue Wrath. But I was like, I lose the game to Yellow Wrath. And I think I'd already seen a Yellow Reprimand, the one that gives you minus. So I was like, okay, maybe he's playing like Yellow Reprimand, Yellow Wrath. And he had the Blue Wrath to punish. So luckily I was still able to win that game, but it made me ask him after the match, like, are you playing just Blue Wrath or are you playing blue and yellow? He's like, oh yeah, I'm playing 9. So apparently this is like the new Prism thing. They're just going crazy on the reactions.
Yeah.
Just like punishing these decks that don't have poppers.
Yeah, I was like, I definitely don't want to have to deal with any of that. So,
yeah.
But pretty good spot to be able to be in, on the last round of the tournament, especially. And plus, there's always like a part of me that kind of doesn't want to like dream crush when the game doesn't matter at all. Like literally doesn't matter. If I was playing for seeding, it would be different because like that matters. But there's nothing could happen. Yeah, it's just Elo, but it's like whatever. Like so, I'm just sitting there. I'm like, it kind of feels bad to just win this. Like if I were to win, to just like dream crush this guy out for no reason. like literally just to do it would be like the only reason to do so. But
Well, you're
Well,
luckily,
we play Flesh
trolley
and Blood to
problem.
win Flesh and Blood.
You're doing like a
there's
trolley
no
problem
reason.
situation though, or like you're not dream crushing the guy actively, but you're dream crushing the other guy by losing. Who got?
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I don't have to do it for the guy in front of me, right? Like,
Yeah. So you wouldn't pull the lever. We figured it out.
yeah. Other than that, it was great meeting everyone this weekend. I made a joke that it kind of felt like we were doing a Runaways calling because I met so many people who were either fans of the podcast or playing one of the decks or just came up and chatted and talked to us, and the vibes were great. But other than that, I thought Portland was awesome. Other than, I think we were like almost at cap, or they had some weird cap because they only had one room. It was like small, right?
Yeah, it was like
Yeah, it was a little
technically at the hotel, not at the convention center itself. So yeah, it was
Which I love. I love when it's a hotel is the venue too.
Mhm.
Just leave my room, walk upstairs. It's so convenient.
Zen, good deck.
That is such
Maybe.
a good deck. It's so fun to play, man. It was so enjoyable.
We did the thing. We said Zen was good deck. We then topped the tournament.
Yeah, I saw you won like a Battle Hardened this weekend too.
Yep.
Different
And Zen
event.
got top. There was 2 Zens in the top 8.
Deck's good.
Mhm.
My run was also good until it wasn't. I did my like classic 3-0, 4-0 start. I forgot what it was, and then had a curse game against Victor on new. He played it very well, but it was just like one of those classic like every turn it's like, oh, this hand's nuts. I hope he doesn't have this card, and then he has this card, and it was just like every turn. But then I proceed to play another 2 news, so it was 3 in a row, and that's just like absolutely taxed my brain, and it took away all of my breaks because every round I was like the last game to finish. But it wasn't
Yeah.
even like I went like deep into time. It was like time was called. One game was funny. Time was called. I attack for 20 with Cosmic. My opponent dies right in time. But then we start the next round like instantly. So I had like no breaks and that was tough on me. But after that, I went downhill is the point. I got tired. I punted a game. And then day 2 was kind of similar. Oh, wait, hold on. I have to say this. Sorry, let me finish
Yeah.
my run. So I finished day 1. I'm X-1 going to the last round. It's like a really weird Aurora game where we do nothing for 2 turns and then we blast each other. And I have like a Mauling key set and it goes to 1. So I'm like, I just have to keep a blue. And then the game's over. I win. I get 3 cards. And then I loop him. When I get sleepy, I stop seeing the board state. And he had a Channel Lightning Valley out, which could lead to some issues. But he only has like 2 or 3 cards in hand. And I have like the most perfect hand possible to stop his turn. And I have 2 armor up. He leads with an E-Strike for 5 with Go Again. And I say, block 4 with Sink Below. And he's like, take 1. I was like, yeah, why not? And I lose because he draws like an Arc Lightning or something. And then he puts me to 1. And now his 1 card takes 2 of my cards because he can do split damage with Grasp. So I kind of throw that one away. And then day 2 goes fine. I win the first 2 or 3 rounds, feeling good. And I pair into none other than Michael Fang, as is tradition. Man, it's so rough when I play against him. So he's beaten me too many times recently. But it's like half the time I make like an error and I lose. And that's on me. And then the other half, he just like absolutely rolls me, which was the case this game. It was very similar to Cody's stream game at Worlds or his top 8 game. Michael was playing Enigma, but he just like has the actual absolute nuts against me. It's like turn 1 Transcend, turn 2 Mirror Guy, turn 3 Spec Man into Restless Coalescence. Like, okay, I'll just die. It was funny. I had an out where like if my Ancestral Harmony hits, exactly chase the tail, which like obviously that's narrow. I think I still won that game, but I get absolutely crushed and then I'm dead. But I lost yet again to Michael, so I'm a little annoyed about this. Congrats to him on winning though. I am happy for him, but I will yeah, not pleased with that. And then I don't know, I win the next. Oh no, I lose the next round. So I like die for cash without knowing it because it's like the second to last round, and it's like another misplay that's really hard to see. It's like I'm calculating my like traverse 7 card sequence, and I like incorrectly play around at reaction where I think I probably get there if I don't. So it was like kind of 2 misplay games, 2 hard games. So I finished X4 in like 34th place or something.
Yeah, rough. The hard punting the game is rough.
Yeah, no, the day 1 is the one that hurts. Like the other one was against Kasai, so it's like not things I'm used to thinking about. That one's like whatever, but the day one was just like so very egregious and so typical for me. Like it's the same thing every time. I get too tired the last round of the day. I miss something that's face up on the board just staring at me, which is ridiculous. And then I throw like a almost one game. So
Maybe you should reach out when people come up and say they like the pod. They give you like a caffeine supplement or something if they see you after round 4.
dude, if anyone did that, I would be so appreciative. No, I'm gonna make efforts to address this. Like, surely I can just put like a bottle of tea or coffee in my book bag, and this is not an issue. Like, it's kind
You
of
can-
ridiculous. I haven't been doing this.
Yeah. And yeah, you should leverage the fact you have team there to be able to send people on missions to get you beverages.
Yeah. It was the new games, right? I know I complained about it all weekend, but because I got 3 news in a row, like after the first one, I was like, man, I'm tired. I need to get coffee immediately after the next round. The next round actually goes to time. We start right away. I'm like, okay, next round I have to get it's the same story. But no, I'm definitely gonna do some things to address this and work on not letting these things happen again and not getting sleepy at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'll do a quick recap of my Tarek game because a lot of people have asked either in our Discord or the Purple Discord what happened. But the quick synopsis is that on turn 2, Tarek played Maragai using his helmet, followed that up with a weakest link, and he has Aqua Labs arms, so and he has 1 floating, so it could be 7. He also has a set card that he put the turn before. I look at my hand, and it is Flex Claws, blue, CNC, CNC. So I can't block with Traverse, and there isn't even like a good Traverse hand out of this hand. So I end up just taking all of the damage from the Maragai and the weakest link. I just send Flex Claws, CNC, set CNC. I don't break his board because he has a D react set. So his next turn ends up being swing the same Maragai at me and then play a CNC. And so I can't really block the CNC. My hand is a chase line, so it actually does break his board. So I end up just like taking both again. I'm at 8 at this point. I lose the CNC that I set that I was going to use as like a power card later. So I guess I should have just blocked with it the turn before, but like you can't see that. Like that's not like I don't think a real line. I mean, it's kind of a real line, but
behind, right?
yeah, I was
You need that
behind and
extra
I wanted to leverage that on the next round or the round after. And so I'm at 8. He's at 32. Looking a little dire for your boy. I end up clearing his Maragai. He then comes back with just like another CNC that I end up blocking out. But my hand is so good that like I can chase line again. So I like chase line again. I get like most of his cards. He attacks me. I end up throwing my helmet, my boots in front of that with a card, and I end up doing this ridiculously long line. With like I finish on like a 2 for 6 on the Key Unleash Yellow that's in the deck from hand, which was pretty spicy. And I end up chucking him like super low. We get to the point where I'm at 3, he's at 3. He has no card. He has 1 card in his hand, so he just arsenals. And I look at that health. I look at him not attacking me, and I go, "Oh, I have turned this around. I have moved this game from I was at 8, he was at 32. We are now both at 3. I have full momentum. Let me just draw up this hand and win the game real
Just
quick."
one chi.
And I draw
One chi.
I draw my 4 cards, and it's E strike, blue, blue, and I go, "Yeah, I think I just lost the game." Like, so I can't complain too much. I end up just sending like the 5 and the 7, and then he ends the turn with a Spectral Shield on board. He goes Spectral Shield into E strike, takes my whole hand but 1. I set a card, and then he kills me on the next round. But like, I can't really complain about the game because like he got top of range with Maragai and a disruption twice like in a row, and I was down a bunch of health. I clawed it all back. I got it to a spot where my deck just has to let me draw 4 functional cards. They don't even have to be high damage because he's at 3. They can just be like 2, 1, 2, 4. Like they can just be like small attacks, and I can like strip his hand and try again if I really need to. And the deck just fails. So can't really complain. I think I put myself through that game in a spot to win it, and the draw just didn't happen. So for wondering how I lost to Enigma again, that is the story.
And that's the typical story, right? It's like early mirror guy or disruption that matters too much.
Yeah, it's Mirror Guy with Disruption, and then Mirror Guy with Disruption back to back. It's just like,
Yeah.
oof,
But also like Mirror
hard to
Guy
deal with.
before you transcend can be quite the issue.
Yeah, agreed. Other than that, great tournament. I was a little sad afterwards, obviously. Once again, did not go far enough in top 8. And I only got to enjoy being in top 8 for like 10 minutes because when you play it the same day, you're like, I made top 8. They're like, take a picture. And they're like, okay, go play your game. And then you're out and you're like, well, that was unsatisfying. No one knows a little bit about that, I guess. Spend all night thinking about your game, then your game's over, and then you're just like, well, am I done? Do I go home now? What do I do?
And my game was so fast too. I was like, oh, well, this is not satisfying.
Yep.
Oh, I know those feels.
Someday I will win a tournament. If I keep topping 2 events a year, eventually I will win a tournament.
That's why we keep going.
That's why we keep going.
It's bound to happen.
Sure. Anything else about Portland that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I think my highlight was probably our sushi night. The 3 of us did.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, we were just kind of the only 3 around and the only sushi enjoyers for the night. So we found like, well, Noah's the food expert, so he did the dirty work and found this place. But it was just like a very small Japanese restaurant.
Back in Japan.
Yeah, it felt like we were back in Japan. Like the seating is just one very long bar that wraps around. And there's probably like 10 seats, and then there's one person doing like the the management of the place, and then there's one sushi chef, and that's it. But it was all you can eat, and it wasn't like your typical like check off the boxes what you want. It was like you have access to the whole menu, but you can only do one round at a time. So we ended up enjoying a nice like 2.5 hours together, which started off as kind of like what's going on here, but I don't know. I think it was chill by the end. I got to try plum wine for the first time with Noah. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Sushi was
addicted
like
to plum wine after Japan.
Yeah.
Sushi was delicious. They had like some pretty cool stuff for all you can eat. I put it that way, like pretty unique.
Yep. I think that was a great place. That was fun. Cool. So the next thing we're working on is LL, right? I have diving into LL for the Chicago calling.
I've already tested more for that event in the last 24 hours than I did in total for Portland.
Fair. So be working on that. I have to decide if I'm going to play Chain or not. Chain is not great, but it's hard for me not to play the deck that I love. So am I trying to win or am I trying to play Chain is kind of like the answer that we have to ask.
I was trying to make some like Chain brew today after you were dooming on it this weekend, and I kind of understood what you were saying where there's like different avenues if you want to be focused on Belittle or focused on Runegate cards, and like both have their flaws, and I don't think you can really play both in the same deck. So yeah, it's a tough puzzle to solve.
It might not even be like strong after you solve it because like everyone else has like new stuff, and you just have all the old stuff, and you're just like, oh, I sad. And like all the new stuff doesn't really apply to you. That's for Runeblade. But besides that, I'm sure we'll talk about that more, next week as we start leading up to it. Noah, I did want, since you are finally on, I kind of wanted, if you wanted to talk about how you came to this version of Viserai, how you feel about this deck overall, just kind of like a higher level synopsis of the deck.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I won't spend a whole nother hour. There's a video with Yuanji and I on Fino's channel if you want to see like the whole hour breakdown, as well as in the Squires threads in our Discord. I put like pretty extensive write-ups of how I play matchups, what I do with certain cards. A lot of like the sideboarding decisions are a bit of game time decisions that I make, and it's often changing based on whether I win the die roll or not. So just those caveats. But getting to this Viserai list in general is, it kind of started with seeing what Brody was doing at like the very start. I don't think he actually won that event. I don't even know if he topped that event, but his list with running like the Rainbow Rune Rager, the 6 Malefics, just kind of like trying to never pitch cards and play your whole hand out on offense seemed like really appealing to me because you could always play your whole hand out on offense, and it didn't suffer from the problems of Viserai of old, where you always had to see a blue because you wanted to play like a 2-cost into your 1-cost weapon. So here, like the blues were kind of just like whatever. You play blues because they didn't print enough good reds and yellows, and because sometimes you want to AB. So kind of instead of being a mystic hero where I want to play all the blues because all my blues are busted, it's like, well, I don't have to ever play resource cards in general. So I'm also kind of winning in this exchange where I'm playing uh, reds and yellows that are just way above what one card should be. So this was like pretty interesting, as well as the fact that when I read Face Purgatory, I thought it was like a fake card. Like, there's no way that this is like actually a Flesh and Blood card that's real and approved for CC play. After playing with it, obviously, there's like definitely lines your opponent can take to minimize the value off of it, and sometimes your hands are awkward to where a random card off the top doesn't actually like necessarily help you, or you have to block with key cards. So a bit less good, but still like just having that card on the table makes me feel so safe when I play. And so the next problem was obviously people know what Runeblades do. Runeblades are super popular. If you look at the representation, I think Runeblade is like far and away the most popular class. And Viserai in particular, the traditional belief is that he gets dumpstered by warmongers, and he especially gets dumpstered in the sense of in an aggro matchup, they send their whole hand for damage. You take it all intending to throw something back, but then they finish with the warmongers. It's not as much a problem of the warmongers from a fatigue deck, because it's like whatever, they're not really, you didn't take any damage, they just cast warmongers to buy themselves space. It's not a big deal. The bigger deal is, okay, I just took 18 damage and now my hand does 6 because he warmongered me. So I think being able to leverage defensive cards to mitigate the impact of warmongers by not taking a lot of damage and kind of putting them in a bind. Like, I think I counted 6 times my opponents pitched warmongers to do their play because they realized throughout the course of the game, this I'm just talking about this past weekend, they realized throughout the course of the game that like if I play this card instead of using it as my resource card for the turn, I'm essentially wasting 3 to 4 damage. And I don't think this Warmongers is going to be worth 3 to 4 value for what Noah's intended plan is on the next turn. So, yeah, that was like, those are kind of two of the big things, is being able to scale your hand to play it all out for without needing to worry about resources, and then also being able to be resilient to what the common counter is. And especially for Worlds, I think people wouldn't be as aware that my deck was built in such a way to totally mitigate the impact of Warmongers, or maybe they didn't have reps as Zen into the way I was playing Viserai, and they would use their chest too early, this kind of a thing. So it was not only Viserai being a really strong engine, but also preying on the fact that opponents wouldn't be ready for this style and getting a real edge. It's kind of like, sorry, I'm rambling a lot here, but I think this is relevant. In FAB, it being best of one really doesn't leave your opponent any room for having a wrong game plan. Like, if they realize by like turn 3 or 4 what I'm trying to do is like make a bunch of rune chants and play really efficient defense, they're kind of like screwed. They've already committed maybe some of their really strong cards instead of saving cards for power plays. They probably sideboarded incorrectly. Like in the case of Dio, round 1 of Worlds, I played against Matt Folks, and he played a clean 60 with like no max V. And if I'm trying to fatigue you, like, you have actually 0% chance of ever winning if you present your deck like that. You're not going to be able to hit on boom grenades if I'm running 9/4 blocks. So yeah, these were all kind of things that I had theorized would make Viserai a good choice for Worlds, and then they ended up coming true. So this is why I continue to play them.
Yeah, I think I remember specifically we were playing as a team. We were playing Zen into Viserai, and we were just like dumpstering Viserai, like the old version. And then Yuanji is just off on his poker adventure. I think like hanging out in the room, and he just, if you mention bad things about Viserai, he just like shows up to like disprove what you said. And we're like, yeah, there's just no way for it to beat Zen. And then you just hear Yuanji, let me take a look at it. And it's like an hour or so later, maybe the next day, he just like okay, let's play some games with this list. And it's just like completely different. And then, you eventually just realize that, hey, this is probably just good into everything. Like, not just Zen. It's like one of the only examples of like internal testing on that high of a level ended up like birthing something actually really good versus like inbred testing.
It happens.
It happens sometimes, but
Yeah,
like
it
this is
happened
like
with Chain back in the first US Nats.
yeah. I mean that's a while back.
Internal testing into Briar.
Most of the time you just like ignore internal testing like that
Yeah.
specific, but like this is like one of the cases where the deck just kept getting better, by like leaning into this other play style, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think it's a deck you kind of have to play a little bit to understand why some of the bad cards are good. Like it seems very bad when you have a hand that is like 2 Blessing of Occult, a Rune Blood Barrier, and like a blue Rune Rager. You're like, what am I doing with my life? Like my turn is block 4 and make a Rune Chant, play Blessing, pass. Like this is just like, how is this a real deck? But when you make those like value neg plays on one turn cycle, the reward you get later from casting like a 1 card Ninth Blade, or just like casting Red Amp with Succumb into another attack, is just like it makes up for the clunkiness. Um, and then there's also games like I played into one Azalea where my deck actually just like drew good hands, and I literally won at 14 with Face Purgatory, Full Grasp, Tunic, because like I just didn't draw any of the bad cards. The deck was like you could just smoke anyone if I draw like that in every game. So yeah, I think it's like when you draw the bad cards, it's not as bad as drawing clunky hands in other decks because of the fact you have like the grasp as an outlet, and you're also not letting your opponent filter, so you're giving them the opportunity to also have a bad hand and not come back at you. I think that's one thing that's like kind of hard to put into real words, is the fact that if you spend 4 consecutive turns never attacking your opponent is going to have some sort of hand where they wanted to block with 1 or 2 cards, and you kind of make up for your inefficiency by making them inefficient. That was like another kind of thesis of the deck.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that not a lot of people think about when they're playing or building a deck.
Yeah. Oh, and also it's super relevant. The Reaping Blade text, not just for CYB, but like a lot of Aurora decks play Sigil of Solace.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was saying, if you spend like 3-4 turns not attacking them, they're going to be drawing their Sigil of Suffering, Sigil of Solaces, and these cards are just like completely blank red cards. So they end up like pitching reds to do their play because like they can't cast them and their arsenal is clogged. Maybe it's just yeah, even a deck that you think, oh, it's lightning, it can just play out its whole hand on offense, has those kind of inconsistencies.
Sweet. Cool.
Your Warmonger's comment made me think of a fun thing from Portland.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Every single time I cast a blue Biting Breeze, my opponent like audibly groaned. Like it was the hardest decision they made the whole day. But, like every single time. This is like 12 times throughout the day. I just found it very enjoyable. And I also understood.
Yeah, I hate that card.
Yeah.
But I love that. I love that card when I play it. I hate when people play it against me.
It's just so annoying. It's like, is this worth 1 or is this worth 8?
If I'm like, please have my boots up, I look over. I blocked with my boots already. Oh no.
Oh yeah, especially in the mirror. It's just like you only got one chance. You only got that one copy of one armor.
Yeah. Oh. Cool. Let's jump into some podcast questions. If you'd like to be able to ask questions on the podcast, look at the Zen deck. We just posted our updated ones from Portland with sideboard notes. See the Viserai deck that we were talking about before, or any of the other offerings that we have. Feel free to join in the Discord below. The first question here from Renzo asks, is Zen the real reason why there weren't any Rune Blades in top 8 of the Calling?
Okay. Well, I got to dispel this. Like, there weren't Rune Blades technically in top 8, but I think if you look at like the top 32 decks, there was probably like 10 Rune Blades. Like there was a bunch of them just kind of on that cusp of 1 win away because of the way the tournament was. That I think Zen, like you mentioned earlier, Cody, is a pretty decent gatekeeper into Viserais if they don't have a plan. But I don't think it's fair to say that there was like not a lot of good Runeblade conversion. They just didn't happen to physically be printed in the top 8 bracket.
I mean, I would say it was pretty hard for them at the top end of the tables to navigate through each other. Like for example, Aurora mirrors. You got to play. There's a bunch of Aurora. You got to play that, and then like you also have to play Zen, and then there's like some prisms floating around. So there's like several hard things for those type of decks to get through, to make it into the top tables. And I know a lot of the Auroras ended up losing games to Zen, which is like a good reason why a lot of them did like just fail short.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely fair to say Zen was gatekeeping some rune blades, but not that it's all dooming in if you're a grasp enjoyer.
No, it's just that it's just that you can only lose 2 games. Like
yeah, exactly. It's so punishing. Yeah,
like you can only lose 2 games, and like you're probably going to lose a mirror, and then you're probably going to lose to a Zen. Like it's just like like that's all you got, and then like you have to play flawless and everything else. Yeah, yeah, it's like hard, right? Yep. Dan.
Nah, I agree.
Okay.
Sound good.
Yeah. Millen asks, since world premiere in Prague looks like a big event, is there anything you could do to prepare yourself for a world premiere, and for the calling the next day?
I will say what we tried to do last time was just not relevant even a little bit because they had like all the important cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the opposite,
but this
right?
Time, they're doing only the Majestics, right?
Yeah. You like can't prep for this, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't.
Because the commons and rares are like most of the deck. And so like knowing all the fancy cards does not help in trying to see how the decks operate.
Yeah, I would say just work on improving at the game, like record some games, review it with some teammates, some friends.
Yeah, just like understanding like limited fundamentals. I think that transcends any limited format, and also like being very familiar with all the hero. I mean, it sounds basic, but just like being very familiar with all the stuff that's face up, like understanding how the macro works if there's a macro, understanding the intricacies of all the hero text and stuff. So that way you can spend your like mental energy on figuring out like your lines of play and like parsing new cards as they come on the board. Make sure you have everything that's revealed beforehand like nailed down.
Yeah, it's typically like. Go ahead.
I was gonna say just play the blitz decks when they come out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming they'll still do that because I think they released those at pre-release. But play like the LSS constructed decks for those heroes just to get a feel of like the gameplay loop.
Yeah, I would also just say look for the deck that's the most consistent, doing the most consistent thing in FAB. That's typically the best sealed deck to look at when you're going in, if you're not sure. Also, evasive damage is usually a big deal in sealed. If we think about the last sealed format, everyone was playing Florian. It had evasive damage, and it was also just the most consistent with the best fatigue tools, which is always relevant in sealed when you're limited to 30 cards.
Yeah, I would try to just like, if it's easy to focus on, I'm not sure if that'll be the case in this set, but if there ends up being some card that's just like, okay, this is my like win condition card, or maybe it's a win condition like set of, this 3-card hand, I'm gonna pitch stack because it's draconic, so like maybe I can pitch reds and find them, and then like I'm gonna have this hand and this is gonna be how I win. I think that could be a way to succeed, but also it's a like world premiere, it's not rated, so also just like looking at the tables next to you, kind of like taking in what other players are doing, talking like with people at the event, I think is like a good way to get value out of that world premiere Friday. So that way you're more prepared for the calling the next day because you've gotten like outside perspectives on how to build a deck and how to play cards.
Agreed.
Yeah, to Cody's point about Florian, like I think even more so than looking at heroes, like look at the weapons. Like having a 4-power weapon in a format where 2 heroes don't have a weapon and one swings for 2, like that's a pretty good thing to build around in sealed, I think.
Agreed.
And it's something you guarantee to have, right?
Yep. Ronco asks, what is your guys' policy on takebacks?
Mine changes. It depends on the mood and the event. Yeah, it really depends. I like Pro Tour Plus. I just call a judge. Like if you want to take back, I don't ask the judge. It's not my choice.
Yeah, I try to make it less about like what I allow someone to do and more just like if there's a discrepancy, we call judge.
Yeah, whatever the rules are.
Yeah.
If
I used to have like a much different stance on this before the rules were changed. Like we were talking about kind of at the beginning with like Lil being really sweaty. Like I was like pretty against that as being the way to play the game. But now that the take back rules are so lenient and very lax, there's just like, I don't need to have my own policy on take back because like the judges just let you take anything back anyway in the entire game that you ever want. So it's like, just ask the judge. like,
Yeah, I just care about staying within the rules, like keeping
Yeah,
whatever.
the rules are
current
good now.
integrity is,
Like
right?
the
Yep.
rules aren't just like punishing anymore. They're just like good enough. And sometimes they're probably too lenient for, certain parts of the game when you're, at Pro Tours and Worlds and whatnot. They're probably a little too lenient, but like that's what the rules are. So like I don't need a take back policy anymore because they just let you take everything back.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Like I don't at professional events, I don't give takebacks, but I like actively encourage my opponent to call a judge if they don't like their play. Like give it a shot, man. Like see
Yeah.
what happens. It's not my decision.
I
My
think
personal feeling is that like if my opponent's played a card, they've looked to me for a response, I've okayed, then they go to play a second card and look to me for a response, then I don't feel like they should be able to go and rewind the first card that they played. But like Cody said, I mean, the judge could let you take it back. It's all up to what the judge says. But
Oh yeah,
my
as soon as
personal
there's new
feeling-
information, like that's not the same thing at all.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's how I hope it would be rolled, but I don't know.
I mean, I guess I technically had an opponent have a take back in like one of my games, but it was just like I stripped their hand. They went to their hand. They're like Arsenal. And they're like, wait, can I tunic first? I haven't. They didn't have any cards. They didn't do anything. And I was just like, sure, you get one. Everyone gets one. Like that. That was like not a big deal. Like
Yeah.
literally had nothing. And if he called the judge, I'm sure they, depending on which judge they got, they would have let him take it back. They're like really iffy about the tunic, up and down. But I was like, that wasn't a big deal, right? Okay. Next question from Fighting Wild Loon asks, I heard a player talk about having fun while losing with a deck. Do you ever have fun while losing at a competitive event?
I would say like once per tournament, I have a game like that where it's like my draw was reasonable. My opponent did either like above average things, like not egregiously though, or like some cool plays, or they like genuinely outplayed me. Like, I can't remember an actual example, but I have this feeling like once every tournament, once every other tournament, where it's just like I lost a game and I was like, that was a really good game of Flesh and Blood. I wish I broke a little bit better, but I still enjoyed that.
I think the most fun game I ever lost. So to be short, no, I never have fun if I'm losing at a major. If I flew across the country to play at an event and then I lose.
Oh
I
yeah,
can
this
most
is only
certainly-
after I'm dead. I should add that.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, if I'm still live for any amount of prizing and I've like flew to this tournament, I booked a hotel and stuff, I am certainly not having fun while losing. I can look back on it and be like, okay, that was like whatever. It's not that big a deal. But the one time I did have a lot of fun is if I'm ever losing at like not an event with high stakes and I learned something that I would have never learned if this person didn't do the play. It was against a Visai where like I was pretty sure I had the game 100% won and I threw an amplify instead of just pitching to swing sword and they had no AB. So it would have been guaranteed game no matter what. But instead I cast the amplify and I was at 3 and then they played double invert existence. And so I died. And I was like, well, I will never make that mistake ever again. This has been like the most enlightening loss of all time. Thank you so much. So that was like a lot of fun losing, but that was just because it had low stakes. If that happened to me at a major, I would probably just go retire to my hotel room. But yeah, that's just me. I see people have fun when losing a lot. I just it's hard for me to do that.
Yeah, I think for me it's when both of us are able to play at like very high efficiency, like skill wise too, but like our decks are allowing us to like make above rate plays every turn. I enjoy those games a lot.
Yeah. I will say immediately after the game, I am not having fun. But I can say like my stream game against Victor, who was playing new, was actually fun. Like it was a fun game, even like things were going wrong, but it was just like at one point I'm like completely out of the game. The other point I'm like way ahead in the game. And then I like have like this crazy end sequence where I could like Cosmic Awaken him twice to win the game. And it's like almost there. And it's like a push and pull. Like looking back on it, I would like, there are moments I'm just having fun during the game. I'm not happy about the result afterwards, but like it was fun to play.
Yeah, it's always that push pull. And like obviously that's why Flesh and Blood is great, right?
Yeah.
But I say the same thing after these types of games. I'm always like, this was a great game of Flesh and Blood. Like I lost whatever.
I mean, and you can see it on the stream. Like I'm not raging or anything. I'm just like, oh, this is terrible. Like it's like, this is terrible with like a smile on my face. Like, can you just not do this to me this turn? Like, Can you just no, don't hit me, I have it. No. Like it's like stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
like
I
that's
have to
just
watch your
that's
stream.
way different than being upset, right?
Yeah. This
I-
sounds
I got
exactly
so-
like. You finish.
I said I got so animated. There's a mic. I ripped the cord out of the mic because I was so animated during the game of like the big moments that happened. And then I looked out afterwards and the cord's just hanging off. And then like Ethan walks over and he's like, "Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you in the middle of the game, but yeah, at some point that got ripped off." So I just have a mic just clipped here with no cord.
Nice. No, I know exactly what you mean. That sounds like my that like ProQuest Plus or what release PTI event that I lost in the
Yeah.
finals on stream against Will. That was Icelander. He was Lexi, but it was just like every turn I was like, oh, I got him with this channel lake, and he's like Codex of Inertia. I was like, oh, and I try again. Same thing. And for me, I was very animated on the stream. That's why I thought of that. But for anyone else, I probably didn't look animated.
I don't know. It's
those
more
are
of a
In
have
hindsight.
fun when you look back on it in hindsight. I'm not like afterwards. I'm not like getting up from the table. Well, that was fun. Like I just lost and like walking away like
And that will
just-
never happen against New.
I don't
to be
think that'll
fair.
ever happen.
Yeah, I think actually my match against Josh in PTLA was fun, but that was just because I knew that it was no stakes. Where even though I lost, I was still top 16.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that counts. Oh, and also my match at Worlds against Yuanji was fun because I knew that it meant one of us was just one step closer to top 8.
Cool. Next question from Codfather asks, if Jarl is registered in the 5 to 10% range at big events, is your opinion on Zen meta position affected much? I will say congrats to Codfather. I believe he went X3 playing our Zen deck. I ended up playing him on round 9 in a Zen mirror. And between the two of us, I think we played 6 Zen state tokens. So I was like, I got the game. He's like, make another Zen state token. And then it was like, it goes away, make another Zen state token. It was just both of us just slowly our health going
Yeah,
down,
this
just
does
Zen
not sound
states
fun.
on both sides. I don't know. I thought it was fun.
No, that's fair.
But yes, do you think Jarl will have any impact on Zen's position in the meta?
I haven't tested it yet, but I have a suspicion that Zen is quite good into him. I think he deals with like the ice disruption pretty fine. Like you can play a bit more blues. Like obviously, yes, if you have a frostbite and you're transcending off of 0 cost, that's not a thing you can do now. But our average draw has 2 blues. It's not that hard to get it closer to 2.5 to 3. I think just on power level alone, I expect Zen to come out ahead. Like I think we'll kind of walk down together, but as soon as that traverse gets into lethal range, I think Zen gets there. But I haven't tested it, so I could see it going the other way too.
Jarl has the ability to. It's obviously a little bit of a high roll, but he can uninteractively blow up your traverse potentially, like before you're transcended, be a bit spooky.
Yeah, that's fair.
Bit tough.
That is
The
something to
combo to
look
pull
at.
off. I don't know. I'd have to play the matchup to see, but he's probably better offensively, and then with like bites and stuff to try and control you. But like getting out of the box and then staying out of the box is probably a lot easier. I mean, if Victor is favored, which I think it is for Zen currently, and they have way better defensive tools with Clash, it's going to see hard for me to see how Jarl doesn't just blow up after a couple of good turns, and then they have to like they're forced to block with their stupid 2-block ice cards that they're running. Like
I think
we'll see.
Stalagmite is probably the one defensive.
Stalagmite is the good part. Yeah.
Yeah, the equipment
that.
disruption is the only thing that I think could matter. Like, I don't know. I tested our Portland list against Starvo today, just as like a thought exercise. I put in Art of War, but that was it, and it was quite good into Starvo. So I'm not really worried about this other guy. But I could see, yeah, the equipment disruption is interesting. How many ways do they have to do that now? Is it just what's it called? The blue card still?
Yeah, but they could theoretically have like 9 because they can imposing visage. So like one is like a 6/7, one is a 3/0.
But do they do it like in one shot? I thought they'd have to put like 2 counters on it somehow, right?
I think it's one puts a -1 and then one destroys something that has a -1.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
when it
got
hits, so you just have to block with it.
No, there's one that destroys if it doesn't hit.
Okay.
Yeah,
On
there's
play?
2 of them. One is an aura and one is an action, I think.
Okay. Well, either way, this
It-
might lead us to playing like pouncing links or something. We'll see. And just being like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get my 6 points to start the game, and
It also like I don't
Go
know if
from there.
Jarl will actually have that much like Zen tech because those cards are not that great. They're just ice 3 blocks basically.
No, it's good to bring up though. Like if he can't touch the verse, I don't think that's even a matchup, to be honest.
I don't know. We'll see. I don't expect Jarl to be very good anyway into the meta. So also we have a whole new set coming out by the time I play CC again, so who knows what is going to be good.
It will matter for Friday of Chicago. Exactly.
Yes.
And that's it.
Okay. Mangover asks, do you think that there are some heroes that are bound to fail despite LSS trying to make them competitively viable?
Oh, it depends on what you mean by fail, right? Like fail to
that's
ever win a tournament? Probably, yeah. Or like win a
I-
major.
I think there's a bit of a fallacy in the question. I don't think LSS is trying to make every hero competitively viable. Right? Like maybe
I mean, maybe that's the focus. Like they do want them to be viable, right? Like
Do they
at some point
do they?
playable.
I think they just want each hero to like have their own identity. I don't know that
Yeah.
they necessarily need that
Agreed.
identity to be competitively viable. It just needs to like feel like I'm playing a different hero, not just like a blank text box with the same main deck cards.
Yeah, it's for sure the focus. I agree.
And to be fair, it's a cycle, right? Like they'll wrap around to make these heroes at least better. But like, yeah, some do just fail. Look at Bolton. Look at how many times they keep giving Bolton new stuff, and they progressively he gets better and better stuff. But when your hero is inherently flawed by their own ability, it's really hard for them to ever be good.
I also think if you want to give a direct answer to this question, that LSS intentionally doesn't make some heroes good. Like they don't want a meta dominated by like Boltons and Reinars. That would just like be terrible. You like remove so much agency from your opponent if those decks are really good. So I think they definitely have made it some of their intention, I guess, to not make every deck like super top tier 0 meta. But I think they've done a good job of making the decks at least interesting for people who want to run them.
And they say a lot, it'll eventually be that hero's time, right? I mean, Guardians kind of suck right now. Maybe the Guardian set makes a big difference. That's coming later in the year, and then we have like some more time where Guardians are good, and then they go away again, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah, Lucas made a comment this weekend about how like FAB has just moved past Guardian. Like we just like as a player base understand how to combat Guardian, and so I think it's pretty smart that they're making this mastery set for Guardian. I didn't really understand at first why like Guardians were getting the special treatment, but it makes sense now when like Florian is the best Guardian.
Yeah, and he's not even good. Okay, Giant Steven asks, predictions for LL Chicago, and what are you planning to test?
I'm gonna stick to what I said after they gave Starvo or like unbanned Starvo cards after giving him 2 sets of support. I think we're gonna see 8 Starvos in top 8.
I think there'll be some Kanos in there.
Yeah, Starvo, Kano. I think Viserai maybe is the best non-Kano deck.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a Viserai who's just drawn pretty hot. Do we know how many rounds it's going to be? Is it the same as normal CC events, like 12 or 13?
It'll be a normal CC event.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Zen just like dumpsters every non-disruptive ice deck. I don't know if that's good enough or not yet. I guess he like flips with Kano though.
I've been trying to do some research on YouTube because like I've played now. I can officially say I've played 1 game of LL, and I'm booked for Chicago, so looking promising. And I didn't even finish the game because I wanted to go eat dinner, and I was playing against Count Your Blessings Olympia, and I was like, I know I'm going to win this game, but I don't feel like sitting here for another 30 minutes. So I guess I've played half a game of LL. But yeah, I would assume that there'd be some like crazy stuff that people just aren't talking about, but teams secretly have in the works, because there's like basically no content on like general, here's an LL deck tech. I think MinMax Games has started making some, which is nice, but if you just look up like Viserai LL deck tech, you get like maybe 1 or 2 results in the past year. So
yeah, there's so much room to break the format, to your point.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have an actual prediction, and it saddens me, but I would predict 0 chain in top 8.
That's a shame.
And that really bums me out because I want to bring chain too.
There's a chance I'm probably bringing chain. So
I had an idea for a chain deck where you just like don't actually banish your deck. Like you just play Condemned to Slaughters and Dirges, and you just like keep getting rid of your own shackle every single turn, so you never actually have to like fatigue yourself unless there's some matchups where you want to play into like banishing your deck.
Well,
But
that's
there's
every
so many
matchup.
tools of like getting rid of your shackles now if you don't like want to. I think
Yeah.
it'd be kind of cool.
There is a deck that does that. It's called Viserai. That's the deck you're trying to play.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because Chain needs to draw extra cards because his cards suck. Like all of his shadow cards are garbage. They're below rate on purpose because they're free and you draw them.
Well, I think
extra.
he's saying he's not playing shadow cards.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
just
like,
playing
I would just
Viserai
feel like
cards
the-
with one extra go again.
Yeah. 'Cause then you just play Viserai.
You just get access to some of like the shadow M's.
Hmm.
Or like maybe you play a few shadow cards. I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe
Maybe there's
like
a
not fleshed out at all.
I think it's
just an
interesting.
idea that we have
Maybe-
a density of these cards that can get rid of your shackles. That you don't necessarily and also
Yeah,
like,
you literally
there's a
just
big
play like
difference, I think. Okay, wait. One big difference of
Hmm.
why I would propose him over Viserai is the fact that he can give Rosetta Thorn go again.
Yeah.
So if you have any effects, like one of the problems is people have kind of wisened up these days. No one really presents 0 AB into like Viserai or Runeblade in general. People are always playing 1 AB. So being able to like Rosetta Thorn in the middle of your turn essentially just guarantees every effect in your deck that cares about you dealing arcane damage. So that would be like the reasoning for Chain over Viscera.
You can also just like 3-card 13 all day, right? Just like any non-attack, shrill, hit the high notes plus weapon.
Yeah, yeah.
That's even more.
Sure.
That's a lot of damage. How much is that?
And yeah, and you
See.
could play like Arcanic Spike too,
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
like
like more
3-card 13
shrills. If you're doing the thorn in the middle.
Sure.
Seems yeah, you go work on that. That'd be great.
This is like day zero thoughts. And also if you're like a 17 head, you could play the card Sigil of the Arknight, the one that like pops at the start of your turn. It technically pops at the start of your action phase, so it's like the same timing window as Shackles. So you could like make it pop like in the middle of a shackle because you wanted to draw one specific card and have like a actual like 7-8 card hand. I don't think I'm smart enough to do that, but someone could.
Yeah. We already do that with Artivores on the
Mhm.
big shackle turn.
Yeah, well, I'm saying you could do it all now.
I mean,
You lost me there.
I really hope
I was with you until that one.
It's too far. I'm sorry.
I really hope I get to play Chain at this event. I mean, I can just decide to play a bad deck. Like that is an option that I have. But I would like to feel good about it.
Yeah, it's wild how
like,
much worse it feels.
I just have like a Chain
Felt so
deck off
good
to the
before.
side, and I'll be like watching YouTube videos and just like solitarying stacking because it's so fun. Like there's like that's what I love about the deck is just like I'm gonna put all these at the bottom and I'm gonna set this turn up, and then you get to your turn and you're like, look what I've created. It's
Yeah, I like to say
beautiful.
it's the fastest pitch stack deck because you get to your stack in 8 turns.
Mhm.
But you're not stacking a 5-card hand, you're stacking a 13-card hand that you get to play with. Like that's kind of good, I think.
Yeah. Not that necessarily works in current format. Okay. Kraft asks, do you test with people outside the team? Are you intending to have someone from other than your team join in on the podcast? I will say we haven't yet. There are no current plans, but we're not like it's not like a rule that we're not allowed to have someone from not Runaways on the podcast.
Oh, they might guest on the pod.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
We also don't really test with people from other teams, though. That could always change as well as a team policy.
I'd say we're open to collaboration though. Like we outsource for like specific matchups sometimes.
Yeah.
Or
Definitely.
like I've been like rogue on a deck and I've been like worked with someone outside of the team because we're
Yeah,
working on
I
the
think
same
we
thing.
communicate with people on other teams, but I don't know that we like have scheduled testing sessions with other teams really.
Agreed.
Carnivore asks, is there any chance that we see something like Traverse eat a ban before MST Heroes LL? Or do we just let it ride off into the sunset and then hit it after they ban? Like Crown of Seeds.
I think it's like Crown of Seeds. Like the devs have been vocally acknowledging that Traverse was a bit of a mistake. Like,
Traverse is just like it's an LL card. Like
Yeah.
it should not have been a CC legal card.
but they clearly feel that it's like part of the Mystic identity or something, right? Because they would have hit it. Like they didn't just become aware that this card is broken. They've known the whole time.
I have a caveat, I think. I don't expect to see any traverse bans unless the new set comes out and all the heroes suck. Like,
It is
like
possible.
legitimately, if the next set comes out and they're all just like anemic, like can't actually play the game with the current like Enigma Zen new type situation, then we could end up seeing some sort of ban if that happens. But if like the set comes out and like one of the new heroes is playable, they're never touching, touching it until it gets banned.
I think they would try to sidestep it again with like levels or something first.
Yeah, they might hit something else first, but like I was talking about like MST specific bans. I don't expect to see any unless any of the new heroes like aren't playable. Like if they're all just like hit below the mark they expected them hit, then I can see it happen.
Yeah, I do think we passed the point of like no return though. Like just let them go. At this
All
point.
of them have enough points to where
Right.
it's reasonable for at least one or two to hit LL in the next RTN or whatever the next big point season is.
They could do the opposite. You know how like before they like tone down the points? They could be like, well, Zen and Enigma are the best decks. So they tune up the points for like one season just to get them out like real quick. Like they can always do that. That's
they can do whatever they want
for them. Yeah.
I don't think they'll ban Traverse though. I think they would have done that already.
But yeah, I'm hoping the new set doesn't break new. That's all I'm hoping. Please silo these assassin cards away from new. They don't need to be able to replace their bad cards with good cards. That's the only hope we have, is that they have a bunch of bad cards.
Yeah, if they print more like actual disruption with the assassin tag, it's like looking really bad, because that's one of the main like points where their hands can be clunky as they draw generic attacks with assassin specific reactions.
Yep. If they get rid of some of their like blue one cost bad cards, like if they're able to just get some of those out of the deck and actually replace them with good cards, then we're all gonna have a problem on our hands.
The deck's also probably going to be like $2,000 if you just like replace all the commons and rares with more M's.
Yeah. So we'll see. That is my real worry. Hopefully Arachne's actually cool and good, because it seems cool. Anything else, guys? Nope. Okay, we're out. I'm gonna go see if I can make chain work. So goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the envelope
7
here, but
envelope.
What we could do here is go ahead and play the envelope.
All 3 pitches of envelope and darkness.